employees, etc.?
Yeah, considering the kind of things I've said about myself, I don't think I would be uncomfortable about anything more. So, I don't know whether anybody has coined this term. I've come up with a very strange term called as a negative turnover. So, a negative turnover is basically what you don't make. Now, our negative turnover happens to be at least 10 times our turnover every single year for the last 10 years. Now, that's the irony of our field, so to say. So, technically, if you ask me in terms of turnover, so this year, the year that ended, we were about a 6 crore company, which is not a very fancy amount, although the profit margins are very high. But I think if you actually look at the amount of business we have lost, that's enormous. And I think this is something that I'm pretty okay with. First of all, I'm not in this for money. I'm in this because, as I said myself, I didn't have a choice, and then I loved what I was doing, and that also started giving me money. So money is honestly incidental. I mean, without half the business I have today, I would still be probably doing the same thing because I just love doing that. But the problem of the field has really been there haven't been qualified people. Now, one would expect in a place like Pune, especially where people are so proud about their language and they're really enforcing that on everybody who cares to listen, we would be at least confident that there would be a few hundred Marathi translators in the city. I can assure you there are not more than a dozen translators worth their salt. Nobody we can use in a professional environment. So there are people who can translate. There's a difference between you being able to translate and you being a professional translator, and that's probably the nemesis of this field right now. So talking about the company, I think we started, initially I started in 1991, that's when I started working with languages. It wasn't so much of translations back then, it used to be mostly teaching students when I was still a student and all of that. But very quickly, I think, because 91 was the time when the economy opened up, so there was definitely a need for language translations, and that started happening then. So it was pretty much just one person back then. In 2 to 3 years, we went from a person to being 5 people. But I think until 2000 it wasn't very speedy. We were still about 10 people. I think the real spurt came in 2004, 2005, and that's when we actually started adding more people. So currently we are close to 100 people. 100 people, when I say that, 100 translators. Most of them are translators. We need very little staff, so to say. So just the regular accounts and admin, that's about it. It's not more than 10 people. We started with, of course, our operations from Pune, but now we have offices in 6 locations in India. We used to have an office in France and Germany, but very recently, just last year, we started a company in Europe, which is headquartered in London. So we now have France and Germany coming under that. So essentially, it's all put together about 100 people. Yeah.
No, that's great. I think that's really a great achievement, going from 5 people to where you are today. So when you were starting out, I'm sure everybody, I think the audience is probably a mix of people who are working right now but thinking of doing something, or who have started something but are in the first couple of years. So in the early years, what challenges did you face? Something that you can talk about a little bit.
I think the basic challenge that any business would face would be a cash flow problem, and I think that's where it really helped that I was a translator myself, because you can start a business to earn money, and then you can start a business because that's the very logical and obvious thing to do. So if I was working with languages, I started getting projects that I couldn't handle myself. Now I could have pointed people in some direction and just lost the business, or probably done some part of the role, probably like a project manager or something, and then tried to build a team. So precisely that's what I did. Now the people who are working with me also needed the money every single month. Now the lousiest way to go about doing business, I thought, was to tell them that I will pay you when I am paid, and which is probably something that as a conscious decision I didn't do, and which is really something that created the first problem of sorts. because it saw me working 16 hours and 17 hours because I had to earn all the money that I had to pay. So I was essentially left with nothing. But that's something that probably initially was the biggest challenge, so to say. The other challenge which probably every single business faces is when you have nothing to show, what do you go and tell a client? Because they are not going to be convinced very easily. And honestly, that was the second thing. Although I was quite lucky because there weren't too many translators back then. So we used to get the kind of treatment doctors are shown to get in movies. So there are people carrying bags and stuff like that. And I really miss those times because, yeah, even today you don't get that kind of respect. You're treated like a professional, which is fair, but somebody in desperate need, my machine is lying idle because it's broken down, I need to fix it. There's a downtime attached to it, there's a huge cost. Every day the machine is not working. Okay, here's a guy who seems to understand French. Please, what the hell is written in this manual? Can you explain it to us so that we can repair the machine? It was bliss. But I guess that's professional hazard, I guess. Now it's more professional. And, yeah, so that was the second problem, so to say. As I said, not so intense because finally at the end of the day, people needed somebody who understood the language. It also meant that we could learn at somebody else's cost, which is a luxury a professional translator wouldn't enjoy today. So people had the time, the patience to take us to the shop floor and say, okay, of course they said it to themselves, you look quite dumb, you don't understand what's going on, but hang on, I have the patience, I will tell you what's going on. And then that's how we learn. At one point in time, I remember I walked into a plant in Baramati, which was just an open space. And there were boxes and boxes full of drawings. It was from Piaggio, and I think there were something like 10 or 15,000 drawings. So there was a team of 2 or 3 translators. That's it. That's all they got for Italian. I was leading the team, and we used to translate the drawings and hand it over to the engineers. And we actually saw the entire plant coming alive in front of our eyes. So that's the kind of experience we got. But until you got that, it was very difficult to sell. Because I remember having a torrid time with somebody in Mundwa, a very popular company, famous company in Mundwa. So one fine day, this guy had a lot of time, and I had written a very nice one-page letter explaining what a rocking company BITS was, and he wasn't really impressed. So he had all the time in the world, so he called me, and I thought I was going to get a lot of work, but what I got was a very torrid time because he asked me questions to which I had no answers, and it just made me feel horrible. But yeah, that probably was the second challenge, getting across to people, telling them, convincing them that, I can do it. And essentially back then it was still I, there was no we attached to it, so it makes it difficult.
No, but those early years are very interesting. So now from those days to where you are right now, you have 6 offices in India, you have offices abroad, you have about 100 people. How did you manage this change from a one-man shop to where you are today? What challenges do you face in that growth phase?
I think getting people on board is, and I guess in the near future will continue to be the problem, because I can give you an example. I have written an article in Maharashtra Times, and I had given this example there. Is there anybody here who doesn't understand Marathi at all? No? Okay. So just a very simple sentence to tell you what's the difference between somebody who knows 2 languages really well and a professional translator. Very small example. So the example was our principal is strict. Now if I ask anybody on the street to translate this, who knows 2 languages, English and Marathi being the case, so people will come up with a lot of, so to say, accurate translation. So can anybody just volunteer? We won't make one.
जे अध्यापक स्ट्रिक्ट आहेत.
Okay, so first of all, आमचे
मला माहित होतं.
yeah, it's okay. He's a sport, so
अध्यापक somehow I managed.
okay. Any improvements to the अध्यापक?
प्राध्यापक.
Okay. So now, since the last